The sterile, antiseptic smell of the private suite at Manhattan's Presbyterian Hospital was supposed to be a memory by now. I, Amelia Sinclair, had been counting down the hours. 3 days. For 72 hours. I'd existed in a bubble of fatigue, overwhelming love, and a deep, bone-aching soreness that nobody truly prepares you for. In my arms, swaddled in a cashmere blanket my mother had brought, was the reason for it all. Liam, my son, our son. His tiny face was peaceful in a way that made my heart clench. I glanced at the clock on the wall. For 15 p.m. Discharge paperwork should have been here by now. Tristan, my husband, was pacing near the window, his phone pressed to his ear. He wasn't wearing the sweats he'd promised he'd wear for the drive home. Instead, he was in a crisp, button-down shirt, the kind he reserved for important client dinners. I understand, he was saying into the phone, his voice a low, practiced murmur. Yes, of course. We appreciate you holding it. We'll be there by 7. Thank you. Jean-Pierre. He ended the call and turned to me, a brilliant, excited smile on his face. It was the smile that had charmed me across a crowded charity gala 2 years ago. Right now, it felt misplaced. That was the maitre d' at Le Bernardin, Tristan said, slipping the phone into his pocket, just confirming our reservation. He heard we had the baby and sent his congratulations. I shifted Liam carefully. Tristan, the doctor still hasn't come by. We need to get Liam home. I know, he said, waving a dismissive hand. But can you believe it? 3 months we waited for this reservation. 3 months. And Jean-Pierre himself is holding our table. My parents are already on their way into the city. They're so excited. A cold trickle of dread started in my chest. Your parents? I thought the plan was for you to drive us home, together, our first night as a family. My mom had a whole meal being sent over from Daniel. Tristan's smile tightened at the edges. Amelia, be reasonable. That's just reheated food. This is Le Bernardin. This is an experience. My parents have been looking forward to this for months. Your parents have? I felt my voice rise, and Liam stirred in his sleep. I lowered it to a harsh whisper. Tristan, I just pushed a human being out of my body. I haven't slept for more than 2 hours straight in 3 days. I want to go home, to our bed, with our son. He walked over and perched on the edge of my bed, putting a hand on my leg. It felt heavy, not comforting. Sweetheart, I know you're tired, but look, you and Liam are perfectly safe here. The hospital is the safest place you could be. I'll get you both settled in a car service, the best one, and I'll be home right after dinner. We'll celebrate properly then. A car service? I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. You're going to have me and our 3-day-old son take a taxi home while you take my car to a fancy dinner with your parents? The words hung in the air, ugly and sharp. Tristan's face hardened. The charming mask slipped, just for a second, and I saw the impatient man beneath. For God's sake, Amelia, don't be so dramatic. It's one dinner. It's not the end of the world. It's my car too. You know. Or have you forgotten that we're married? I haven't forgotten anything, I said, my voice trembling. I haven't forgotten that you promised. I haven't forgotten that this is supposed to be about us becoming a family. This is about family. He shot back, standing up. My parents are family too. They want to celebrate their grandson, and I want one damn night to feel normal again. To not be surrounded by hospital smells and talk of diaper changes. Is that too much to ask? After everything I've given up for this? The phrase hit me like a physical blow. Given up? What have you given up? Tristan? Plenty, he said, his voice rising now. 2. My freedom. My social life. I've had to work twice as hard to prove I'm not just Amelia Sinclair's husband. Do you have any idea what that's like? To have everyone assume your success is handed to you? I looked at him, truly looked at him, this man I'd loved, the man I'd chosen to be the father of my child. He was standing in a hospital room, complaining about his ego while I held our newborn son. The absurdity, the sheer cruelty of it, stole my breath. Get out, I whispered, the fight draining out of me, replaced by a cold, hollow emptiness. He mistook my surrender for acquiescence. The charming smile returned. So, it's settled? I'll call for the car service. You'll be fine. I'll be back before you know it. He leaned over and kissed my forehead, a dry, perfunctory gesture. Then his eyes fell on the set of keys on the bedside table. The keys to the brand new Bentley Continental GT I'd bought myself as a push present. He scooped them up. I'll take this. Makes it easier to get my parents from their hotel. He jangled the keys. See, it's more practical. I couldn't speak. I just held Liam tighter, turning my face away from him. I heard the swish of his expensive jacket, the sound of the door opening and closing. Silence. The room, which had felt 2 small moments before, now felt vast and echoing. Tears I didn't have the energy to cry burned behind my eyes. I looked down at Liam. His tiny fingers curled around mine. It's just you and me, baby, I murmured. Just you and me. An hour later, a nurse came in with the discharge papers. She gave me a sympathetic look. All set. Honey, is your husband parking the car? He had a prior engagement. I said, my voice unnaturally flat. I'll need a taxi. The process of leaving was a blur of pain and humiliation. I shuffled slowly, my body screaming in protest. A nurse helped me into a wheelchair, Liam in my arms, a small bag of our things at my feet. We descended to the main entrance. The evening air of New York was cool, a shock after the climate-controlled hospital. The doorman helped me into the back seat of a yellow cab that smelled of stale air freshener and old leather. I gave the driver the address to our building on Central Park West. As the cab pulled away from the curb, my phone buzzed. A photo from Tristan, a beautifully plated dish of scallops. The lights of the restaurant soft and glamorous in the background. The caption, wish you were here. The scallops are incredible. XO, a sob caught in my throat. I opened the Find My app on my phone. A little pulsing dot showed the location of my phone. Another labeled Bentley, was stationary. I zoomed in on the map. There it was, right on West 51st Street, Lou Bernardine. I watched that dot for the entire agonizingly slow ride uptown, through the traffic-clogged streets. It never moved. He was there, sipping expensive wine, laughing with his parents, while I sat in a dirty cab, clutching our son, each block taking me further away from the life I thought I had. When the cab finally stopped in front of our building, our doorman, Carlos, rushed out, his face a mask of confusion and concern. Mrs. Blackwood, we weren't expecting you. Let me help you. He took Liam's carrier and offered me an arm. I walked into the marble lobby, the silence of the penthouse apartment looming above me like a judgment. It was supposed to be a homecoming. It felt like a sentence. Carlos brought us upstairs. The apartment was spotless, dark, and utterly empty. I took Liam out of his carrier, sank onto the huge, cold leather sofa in the living room, and finally let the tears fall. They were silent tears, not of sadness, but of a fury so pure and cold it felt like ice in my veins. I looked at my phone. The dot was still at the restaurant. I thought of Tristan's words. After everything I've given up, I scrolled through my contacts, my thumb hovering over one name. Dad. I took a deep, shaky breath and pressed call. It rang twice. Amelia. My father's voice boomed, warm and familiar. How's my beautiful daughter and my new grandson? Are you home? Did everything go smoothly? The concern in his voice was my undoing. Daddy, I said, my voice low and steady, despite the tremor inside. I'm home, alone, with your grandson. Tristan took my car to have a fine dining experience with his family. I paused, letting the horror of the statement hang in the transcontinental silence. Daddy, make him bankrupt. By tonight, the silence of the penthouse was a physical presence. Thick and heavy, it was a stark contrast to the constant, low-level hum of the hospital. Here, the only sounds were the faint were of the climate control and the tiny, snuffling breaths coming from Liam, who was finally asleep in the bassinet I'd painstakingly positioned next to the master bed. My body ached with a deep, pervasive exhaustion, but my mind was a raging storm. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it, the photo of the perfect scallops, the soft lighting of the restaurant, the casual cruelty of that text. Wish you were here. He was probably on the dessert course by now. A post-meal cognac. Perhaps, laughing with his father, while my mother's carefully prepared meal from Daniel's sat uneaten in our sub-zero refrigerator. I pushed myself off the bed, wincing at the throb of stitches. I couldn't just lie here. The helplessness was suffocating. I walked a slow, shuffling gait that made me feel 80 years old into the vast, minimalist living room. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking, postcard perfect view of Central Park, now twinkling with lights. It was a view synonymous with success, with having made it. Right now, it felt like a beautifully framed picture of my own gilded cage. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Another message from Tristan. This time, a selfie. He was grinning, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. His parents flanking him, their faces flushed with happiness. The message below read, "Mom and Dad say hi. Can't wait to see you and Liam. Almost done here. EXO." The hypocrisy was so vast, so absolute, it short-circuited something in my brain. The anger that had been simmering, cold and hard, suddenly boiled over. It wasn't just about tonight. It was about every offhand comment he'd made about my father's influence. Every time he'd referred to my company as my little tech startup. The way he'd insisted on being added to investment accounts, to feel more involved. The way he'd said, "You and your son in the hospital room." This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was the reveal. This was who Tristan Blackwood truly was. I picked up my phone, my hands trembling, not with weakness, but with a focused, white-hot rage. I didn't call my best friend, Sophie. She would offer sympathy. And right now, sympathy would dilute the fury I needed to survive this. I needed action. I needed a scalpel, not a Band-Aid. I scrolled past her name, past my mother's, and found the number labeled Dad, direct line. It was a number that bypassed all assistance, all buffers. It rang only on the phone he kept within arm's reach. 24 hours of the day. It was picked up on the second ring. Amelia. Robert Sinclair's voice was a familiar anchor, deep and steady, with the faintest trace of a Boston accent he'd never lost. He sounded wide awake, though it was past midnight in Gstaad, where he and my mother were staying. To what do I owe this pleasure? Shouldn't you be resting? How's my grandson? Let me see him. There was a rustle, and I knew he was fumbling to switch to a video call. "Don't, Dad," I said, my voice surprisingly flat. "Not video." The line went quiet for a beat. I could picture him instantly, the casual warmth vanishing from his expression, replaced by the razor-sharp focus of a predator sensing a threat. That was my father. He could switch from doting grandfather to corporate titan in a nanosecond. "Amelia." His tone was different now. All business. "What's wrong? Are you hurt? Is the baby ill?" "Liam's fine. I'm physically fine." I took a sharp breath, the words lining up in my mind like soldiers. "Daddy, I'm home, alone, with your grandson. Where is Tristan?" The question was a demand. "He was supposed to drive you home. I spoke with him this morning." "Tristan," I said, the name tasting like ash in my mouth. "Took my car, the new Bentley, to have a fine dining experience with his family at Le Bernardin. They had a reservation. The silence on the other end of the line was profound. I could almost hear the calculations whirring in his mind. He wasn't just processing a personal betrayal, he was assessing the strategic implications, the weaknesses exposed, the threats posed. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerously quiet. Explain. From the beginning. Leave nothing out. So I did. I told him everything. The way Tristan was dressed when I woke up. The phone call with the maitre d'. The argument, word for word as I remembered it. I told him about Tristan saying, "After everything I've given up for this." I told him about the dismissive kiss, the jangle of my car keys. I described the humiliation of the taxi ride, the smell of the cab, the sympathetic look from the doorman. And I told him about the text messages, the glowing photo of the perfect evening happening in blissful ignorance of my world collapsing. I didn't cry. I delivered the report like a CEO delivering a quarterly summary to her most important board member. Cold, factual, and devastating. When I finished, there was another stretch of silence. Then, my father's voice, colder than I had ever heard it, even during the worst boardroom coups. "The car. Your name on the title? Solely?" "Yes. I signed the papers 2 weeks before I went into labor. It's my separate property." "Good. The apartment?" "Mine. The prenup is clear. He has no claim to assets I owned before the marriage. The bank accounts? The joint ones. He has full access. The primary checking. The brokerage account we opened together. How much is in there?" "Around 2 million in liquid assets." I said, the number coming to me instantly. I managed our day-to-day finances. Tristan managed his image. Right. I heard the sound of a pen scratching on paper. My father, in an age of digital everything, still trusted a legal pad for truly important matters. Listen to me carefully. "Amelia, you will not speak to Tristan again tonight. You will not answer his calls. You will not respond to his texts. Is that clear?" "Yes." "You will lock the door. Use the deadbolt and the chain. The building security is excellent, but you will take no chances." "Okay. I am calling Ben Carter. He and his team will be at your apartment within the hour. You will do exactly what Ben tells you to do. He speaks with my voice on this. Do you understand? Ben Carter, my father's personal attorney, the consigliere of the Sinclair Empire. He'd been my godfather first. If Ben was being deployed, the situation had been officially classified as war. I understand. This is what we are going to do." My father continued, his voice devoid of all emotion except a relentless, chilling purpose. "First, we secure you and Liam. That is priority one. Second, we secure your assets. All of them. We will freeze that boy out of every account, every credit line, every source of funds he has access to, by sunrise. Third, we begin the process of dismantling the life he thinks he's entitled to." He paused, and I heard him take a slow breath. "Amelia, what he did tonight, that wasn't just a mistake. That was a message. He believes you are weak. He believes that because you just had a baby, you are vulnerable and dependent. He believes he can do what he wants, and you will have no recourse. We're going to disabuse him of that notion. Permanently." A shiver ran down my spine. This was no longer about a missed dinner. This was about annihilation. "Daddy," I started, a flicker of the woman I was a few hours ago surfacing. "He's Liam's father. He is a man who left his postpartum wife and newborn son to take a taxi." My father cut in, his voice like a whip crack. "He does not get to claim the privileges of fatherhood after forfeiting its responsibilities. We are not having a discussion about this. You called me. You asked me to make him bankrupt. I am now telling you how it will be done. Do you have the stomach for it?" I looked over at the bassinet, at the tiny, sleeping form of my son. I thought of Tristan's words. "Your son." I thought of him choosing a plate of scallops over holding his child on his first night home. The flicker of doubt died. "Yes," I said, my voice firm now. "I do." "Good. Now, put the phone down." Go hold your son. Ben will be there soon. The line went dead. I sat there in the silent, opulent apartment, the phone clutched in my hand. The storm in my mind had quieted, replaced by a terrifying clarity. The path ahead was dark and brutal. But for the first time since Tristan walked out of that hospital room, I knew exactly what I had to do. About 45 minutes later, the intercom by the door buzzed. I walked over, my body still aching, but my head held high. I pressed the button. Yes, Amelia? It's Ben Carter. I'm here with the team. I looked at the video screen. Ben's familiar, grim face looked back at me. Behind him stood 3 other people, 2 men and a woman, all in severe, dark coats, carrying briefcases. They looked less like lawyers and more like a SWAT team. I took a deep breath and pressed the button to unlock the lobby door downstairs. Come on up, Ben, I said. It's time to get to work. The arrival of Ben Carter and his team wasn't an entrance. It was an incursion. The hushed, elegant space of my penthouse was instantly transformed into a war room. The shift was immediate and absolute. There were no comforting words, no condolences. Ben, a man I'd known since childhood, the one who'd given me a stuffed bear for my 5th birthday, looked at me now with the clinical focus of a surgeon assessing a patient on the table. Amelia, he said by way of greeting, his voice a low rumble. He didn't offer a hug. He was already scanning the room, his sharp eyes missing nothing. The 2 associates, a stern-faced woman in her 40s and a younger man with an intense gaze, and the paralegal, a quiet woman with an array of electronics, fanned out behind him. Status report. Is he here? Any contact? No. He's still at the restaurant. As far as I know, he's texted, called twice. I haven't responded. I recited, the words sounding foreign even to me. Good. Keep the phone on silent, but where you can see it, we need a record of the attempts. He turned to his team, already issuing orders. Megan, set up in the dining room. Use the secure satellite connection. David, with me. We need to review the prenup and all joint financials. Right now. Clara, I need you to draft 2 things immediately. An emergency ex parte motion for a temporary order of protection in New York County Supreme Court, and petitions for exclusive use of the marital residence and for temporary sole custody. Grounds: abandonment and emotional endangerment of a postpartum mother and newborn. The words were a chilling drumbeat. Abandonment, endangerment, sole custody. Ben, I said, finding my voice. Sole custody, that's... He turned to me, his expression not unkind, but utterly uncompromising. Amelia, we start at the farthest possible point to anchor the negotiation. We ask for everything. The fact that he left you, medically vulnerable, with a 3-day-old infant. To take a joyride in your car to a 3-star meal is a gift. A judge will not look kindly on that. It establishes a pattern of reckless disregard. Now, the financials. Walk me through everything he has access to. For the next hour, I sat at my own kitchen island, which was now strewn with legal pads and laptops, and dissected my financial life under Ben's rapid-fire questioning. David, the associate, took furious notes. The primary checking at Chase. His name is on it? Yes. Savings? Same account. Brokerage at Merrill? Joint. He has trading authority. Credit cards, the Black Card, the Amex Platinum, both are supplementary cards under my primary accounts. Properties, the Hamptons house, in my name only. The prenup is explicit. Your company, EtherTech, stock options, board position. He has no shares, no position. The prenup bars any claim against my separate property, which includes all equity in Ether, his income, his own accounts. I hesitated. He runs a consulting firm, Blackwood Strategies. I'm not entirely sure of the state of his accounts. He handled that separately. Ben and David exchanged a look. We'll find out, Ben said grimly. Megan, Get on the horn to our contacts at Chase, Merrill, Amex, and Citibank. We're freezing all joint accounts and revoking all supplementary cards, effective immediately, citing suspected financial malfeasance, and to preserve marital assets. Use the Sinclair Holdings legal department as the authority. I want it done before midnight. Megan was already typing. Phone cradled on her shoulder. On it, Ben. Judge Henderson's clerk is prepped on the protection order. We're first on the docket tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., given the circumstances, especially the newborn. The clerk thinks it's highly likely. My phone, face up on the counter, lit up. Tristan. It vibrated softly. Then again, and again. 3 calls in rapid succession. Then a flurry of text notifications popped up on the screen. Babe, you're not answering. Everything okay with Liam? The dinner was amazing. Mom and Dad say they can't wait to see you tomorrow. Heading home now. Should be there in 20. Did the car service get you home, all right? Amelia, pick up. Seriously, what's going on? Don't touch it, Ben said, his eyes on the screen. Let him talk to the void. The more he messages, the more he calls, the more it helps us establish harassment following the abandonment. David, screenshot every notification. Timestamp them. It was surreal. My husband's worried or now. Increasingly annoyed, messages were being cataloged as evidence. Each buzz was a tiny hammer blow to the life I'd thought I had. Ben's own phone rang. He glanced at it. Robert, he said, then put it on speaker. We're here. Amelia is with me. We're securing the perimeter. Ben, my father's voice filled the room, calm and deadly. Status. Financial lockdown is in progress. Protection and custody orders are being drafted for the morning. Physical security is in place. Amelia is following protocol. Good. I've made some calls of my own. Robert said. I could hear the sound of a fireplace in the background. He was in Gushtad, but the war room was there with him. Tristan's little consulting firm, Blackwood Strategies. Its 2 largest clients are subsidiaries of Vanguard Partners and Bryson Capital. I knew those names. My father sat on the board of Vanguard. He'd played golf with the CEO of Bryson for 30 years. I've spoken to both CEOs. My father continued, his voice devoid of all warmth. They were distressed to hear about Tristan's personal conduct and its potential to reflect poorly on their brands. Given his role as a representative, both contracts are being terminated for convenience. Effective immediately. Email notifications will go out at 9 a.m. Eastern. I sucked in a breath. It was brutal, surgical, and executed from 5,000 miles away in the middle of the night. Furthermore, Robert went on. The lease on his office space in Midtown is held by a Sinclair Real Estate Trust. The property management company has been instructed to serve a notice of lease termination for violation of morality clauses. He'll have 30 days to vacate. Ben was nodding, a faint smile on his lips. We'll add that to the financial pressure. With his income streams severed and his personal access to liquidity frozen by morning, he'll be feeling a significant pinch. I don't want him to feel a pinch. Ben, my father said, and the ice in his voice could have frozen the room. I want him to feel a vice. Tighten it. Amelia, are you listening? Yes, Daddy. This is the first move. He will panic. He will get angry. He will say things. Try things. You do not engage. You are a black hole. You give him nothing. Ben and his team are your voice, your shield. You look after my grandson. Let us handle the rest. Understood? Understood. The call ended. The silence that followed was charged. Ben looked at me. He's not playing. Amelia, you need to be ready for what comes next. Tristan isn't going to get a text about a frozen account and slink away. He's going to come here, and he's going to be furious, as if on cue. My phone buzzed again. Not a call this time. A text. I'm outside the building. My key fob isn't working. What the hell is going on? Amelia? Let me in. Now. Then. The intercom from the building lobby buzzed. A harsh, insistent sound. We all looked at the panel. Ben walked over to it. Don't speak. He instructed me. He pressed the button. Yes? Tristan's voice, crackling with static and fury, exploded into the room. Who is this? Where's Amelia? Amelia, open the goddamn door. The doorman won't let me up. And my fob is dead. What kind of game are you playing? Mr. Blackwood, Ben said, his voice a model of calm. Professional neutrality. This is Benjamin Carter, of Carter, Thorne Associates, representing Amelia Sinclair. I'm advising you that you are not to attempt to gain access to this residence at this time. There was a stunned silence from the intercom, then a disbelieving, half-hysterical laugh. Carter? What? Ben, what are you? Put Amelia on the phone right now. This is insane. I'm afraid I cannot do that. Mr. Blackwood, you have been served via digital delivery to your phone and email with several legal documents, including a temporary order of protection requiring you to stay at least 500 feet away from Ms. Sinclair and the minor child, Liam Sinclair Blackwood, and granting her exclusive use of the marital residence. Any attempt to make contact or gain access will be a violation of a court order. I strongly suggest you review the documents and contact your own legal counsel. Another silence. This one was different, thicker, more dangerous. When Tristan's voice came back, it was lower, dripping with venom. You set me up. You and that bitch and her fucking father. You think you can lock me out of my own home? With my son? I'll have your law license. Carter, I'll burn it all down. Let me talk to my wife. Ben's voice didn't waver. Your access to the joint financial accounts has also been suspended pending a full audit, due to concerns about the commingling and potential misuse of marital assets. Again, I advise you to seek legal representation. Further communication should be directed to my office. Good night, Mr. Blackwood. Ben released the intercom button, cutting off the beginning of a stream of inarticulate shouts. The room was silent again, the echo of Tristan's rage seeming to hang in the air. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I'd never heard him sound like that, ever. My phone started ringing again. Tristan, then again, and again. Ben looked at David. Is the process server in position? David checked his phone. Yes, he's in the lobby. He'll serve the hard copies the moment Mr. Blackwood turns away from the intercom. Ben nodded, then looked at me. His expression softened. Just a fraction. The first wave has landed. Amelia, he's on the outside now. It's going to get worse before it gets better. You need to sleep. Or try to. We'll be here. Clara will stay in the guest room. The rest of us will be right outside in the hallway. The building security has been fully briefed. He's not getting within 50 floors of you. I just nodded, numb. I walked back to the bedroom on unsteady legs. Liam was still sleeping, peacefully unaware of the siege happening just outside his door. I lay down on the bed, still in my clothes, and stared at the ceiling. The phone on the nightstand finally stopped ringing. A minute later, a single text came through. I didn't want to look, but I had to. The message was just 2 words, but they chilled me to my core. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't an apology. It was a declaration of war from a man who suddenly had nothing left to lose. You'll regret this. The silence after the intercom went dead was absolute, but it thrummed with a new kind of tension. The shockwave of Tristan's final, snarled threat, "You'll regret this," seemed to hang in the air-conditioned stillness of the penthouse. It wasn't just anger, it was a promise, cold and stark. Ben Carter's face was grim as he turned from the intercom panel. Right on schedule. He muttered, more to himself than to anyone. He looked at me, his professional mask back in place, but his eyes held a glint of warning. The rage is predictable. The threat is not. We take it seriously. Clara, add that to the file. Document the exact time and the wording from the intercom and the text. David, Notify building security that Mr. Blackwood's threats have escalated. Instruct them that under no circumstances is he to be granted access to the building, even the lobby, and any attempt at forced entry should result in an immediate call to 911 and the NYPD's Threat Management Unit. Cite the active order of protection and the presence of an infant. On it, David said, already typing on his phone. Amelia, Ben's voice brought me back from the edge of the cold dread that was seeping into my bones. The next phase begins now. While he's out there scrambling, we're in here digging. We need to know everything. Every password, every safe, every file, his laptop, his desktop, any personal papers he kept here. We're looking for leverage, for hidden assets, for anything that gives us a clearer picture of who we're really dealing with. I nodded, the numbness receding under a surge of adrenaline. Action was better than fear. His office, the den. The den was Tristan's sanctum, a masculine room of dark wood and leather, with a commanding view of the park. It had always felt more like a stage set than a real room, a place for him to play the successful mogul. Now, as we filed in, it felt like a crime scene. Ben's team moved with practiced efficiency. Clara, the paralegal, photographed the room from every angle before touching anything. David gloved up and went straight for the sleek, custom-built desktop computer. Megan focused on the filing cabinet, a modern, sleek thing that was, predictably, locked. Password for the computer? Ben asked. I don't know his. I admitted, a flush of shame heating my cheeks. We'd always respected each other's digital privacy, or so I'd thought. He never gave it to me. Not a problem, David said, pulling a small, alien-looking device from his briefcase and plugging it into the computer. We'll image the drive. Our forensic techs can crack it. But let's start with what we can access physically. The safe. There was a wall safe behind a framed abstract painting. I knew the combination. It was our anniversary date, a fact that now tasted bitterly ironic. I recited it. Ben spun the dial and opened the heavy door. Inside wasn't stacks of cash or secret documents. It was mundane. Our passports, Liam's birth certificate, the paper copies of the prenup, and a few pieces of my good jewelry, and a single, slim manila folder. Ben pulled the folder out and laid it on the desk. He opened it. Inside were financial statements, but not from our joint accounts. The letterhead read Swiss One Private Bank, Zurich. The account was in Tristan's name only. The most recent statement, dated 2 weeks ago, showed a balance of just over $825.000. My breath hitched. What is that? A secret bank account, Megan said, peering over Ben's shoulder. Not uncommon in these situations. A rainy day fund, or a running away fund. But where did that money come from? I asked, my mind racing. He didn't have that kind of liquidity. His firm's profits were modest. Ben was already flipping through the pages. Transfers, over the last 18 months. Smaller amounts, $40.000, $75.000, $120.000. Sourced from, he traced a line with his finger, from the joint Merrill Lynch brokerage account, the one you said he had trading authority on. The room tilted slightly. I leaned against the desk. He was stealing from us? From me? Legally. From the marital asset pool. Ben corrected, but his voice was hard. He was moving funds, likely reporting the trades as losses to you while siphoning the capital into his own offshore account. Classic, clean, and a direct violation of the fiduciary duty he owed you within the marriage. This is good. Amelia, this is very good. This moves us from contentious separation to demonstrable financial fraud. Just then, Megan gave a soft, triumphant sound. The filing cabinet. She held up a small key she'd retrieved from the hollow base of a trophy on the bookshelf. A moment later, the drawer slid open. It was neatly organized. Tax returns, business licenses for Blackwood Strategies, and a bundle of letters, tied with a ribbon. Not business letters, handwritten, on heavy, perfumed stationery. Megan glanced at Ben, who nodded. She untied the ribbon and scanned the first one. Her eyebrows shot up. Amelia, you should see this. The letter was a flowery declaration of love and longing. Phrases like our time in Miami was magical and I can't wait until you're finally free leapt off the page. It was signed, All My Love, S. A cold stone settled in my gut. Miami. Tristan had gone to a business development conference in Miami 4 months ago. He'd been gone for 5 days. There's more, Megan said quietly, handing me another. This one was typed, an email printout. The subject line was, Our future. It was from Tristan. The tone was shockingly familiar, intimate. The old man will never suspect. She's so wrapped up in the baby and her little company. By the time she realizes what's happening, we'll be long gone, and the Sinclair money will be ours to enjoy. Just be patient. My love, the final moves are in play. My hand was trembling so badly the paper rattled. The words blurred. The old MAN.M, why father? She.me, our money. A wave of nausea, sharp and acrid, rose in my throat. This wasn't just selfishness. This wasn't just a man having a midlife crisis over a plate of scallops. This was a calculated, long-term plan. A con. I had been a mark. Liam had been a what? A hostage? A prop? We need to identify S. Ben said, his voice cutting through the roaring in my ears. David, get our investigator on this. Check his phone records. We'll subpoena them. Credit card statements. Travel records for the last 2 years. I want to know who she is, where she lives, everything. I stumbled out of the den, needing air, needing to be away from the physical proof of my own monumental stupidity. I ended up in the nursery, clutching the edge of Liam's crib. He slept on, his perfect face serene. I had brought this predator into his life. I had given him a son to use as a pawn. My phone buzzed. It was Sophie, my best friend, my co-founder at Ether Tech, the one person, besides my family, who had never liked Tristan. I stared at her name, guilt and a desperate need for solace warring within me. I answered, Amelia? Oh my God, are you okay? I just heard. Ben Carter's paralegal called my assistant to verify your whereabouts for some legal filing? What the hell is going on? Where's Tristan? I've been calling you all night. Her voice, full of genuine panic and concern, was the final crack in the dam. A choked sob escaped me. Soph, he left me. At the hospital, he took my car and went to dinner with his parents. I had to take a cab home with Liam. There was a beat of stunned silence on the other end. Then, you have got to be fucking kidding me. That spineless, narcissistic piece of, I'll kill him. Where is he? I swear to God. Amelia, he's not here. I interrupted, wiping my face with a savage hand. Ben Carter is, and a team of lawyers. And Sophie, it's worse. So much worse. He's been stealing money. He has a secret bank account. And there are letters from a woman. He was planning to leave me. He was planning to take the money and leave. The other end of the line was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. Amelia. Sophie's voice was low, deadly serious. Listen to me. I need to tell you something. I should have told you months ago. At the baby's shower, I saw him in the hallway outside the bathrooms. He was on his phone. He thought he was alone. He was saying, don't worry. Once the baby is here and the inheritance is secured, we can speed this up. She's so trusting. It's almost pathetic. I thought I must have misheard, or he was talking about a business deal. I didn't want to upset you. Not when you were so pregnant and so happy. I convinced myself I was paranoid. Oh, Amelia, I am so sorry. Her words were another knife twist. Pathetic, the inheritance. My father's money. It all clicked into place with a sickening finality. The prenup protected my premarital assets, but not future inheritances. With a child, his position, his claim, it would have been stronger. This was always about the money, the life, the Sinclair name. I was just the vehicle. It's not your fault. I heard myself say, my voice strangely calm now, hollowed out by the truth. It's mine. I didn't want to see it. Don't you dare. Sophie shot back. Fierce. This is on him. 100%. What are you going to do? What my father said. I replied, looking at Liam, I'm going to make him bankrupt. In every way a person can be. I got off the phone. A new, steely resolve hardening inside me. The grief was still there, a raw, open wound, but it was being cauterized by fury. I walked back into the den. They had found more. Credit card statements showing regular, expensive dinners at intimate restaurants, dinners I'd never attended, hotel charges in the Hamptons on weekends he'd told me he was working, a separate, secret phone hidden in a box of old college memorabilia. Ben was on the phone with my father, updating him. I heard snippets, Swiss account, over 800,000, evidence of a protracted affair, potentially a co-conspirator, clear financial deception. We have the smoking gun correspondence. I walked to the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Tristan was sitting in a hotel room, or maybe his parents' hotel room, broke, locked out, and boiling with rage. He thought he was fighting for his dignity, for his son, for his fair share. He had no idea that we now knew he was fighting to protect a fraud. He'd built a house of cards, and we had just opened all the windows. Ben finished his call and came to stand beside me. Your father is motivated, he said dryly. The pressure on Tristan's professional life will be unrelenting. By tomorrow, he'll have no income, no office, and his reputation in tatters. Combined with the financial freeze and the evidence we're gathering here. He paused. He's going to get desperate. Amelia, the S-woman. The threats, desperate people do irrational things. The order of protection is crucial. You cannot see him, under any circumstances, not even to talk. I don't want to talk to him, I said, and I meant it. The man I thought I loved didn't exist. He was a character, a performance. The real Tristan Blackwood was a stranger, and a venomous one. I just want him gone. We'll get there, Ben said, but the path won't be pretty. The letters, the emails, we'll need to use them. In court, in the press if necessary. It will get ugly. You need to be prepared for that. I thought of the letters. She's so trusting. It's almost pathetic. I thought of Sophie's voice, thick with regret. I thought of Tristan choosing scallops over his son. I turned to Ben, my face set. Let it be ugly. I said, my voice quiet but clear in the silent, ravaged room. He started this war. I'm going to finish it, and I'm not going to leave him a single card to stand on. The 3 days following the night of the legal blitz were a study in controlled chaos. My apartment remained both a fortress and a command center. Ben, or one of his associates, was always present, a constant, grim-faced reminder of the war being waged. Liam was my only anchor to something resembling normalcy, his feeding schedule. His tiny, demanding cries, the overwhelming, animal need to care for him were the only things that could momentarily pierce the fog of anger and strategic planning. The external world began to react. My father's opening moves were devastatingly effective. The news about Tristan's consulting firm losing its 2 primary clients and its office lease was too juicy to stay quiet in the insular world of New York business. The Wall Street Journal ran a small, brutal piece in its Heard on the Street column. Blackwood strategies left out in the cold. Client exodus. Eviction follows CEO's personal troubles. The article was vague on details, citing only reputational concerns, but the implication was clear. In the world of high-stakes consulting, reputation was the only currency, and Tristan's was now worthless. My phone, set to only allow calls from a pre-approved list, buzzed constantly with notifications from my publicist. Jessica, the rumors were swirling, and they were ugly. The narrative Tristan was trying to spin was beginning to leak, seeded through gossip columnists and industry blogs sympathetic to the underdog story. The hardworking, self-made man being crushed by his billionaire heiress wife and her ruthless father. I'd seen the headlines. Sinclair heiress cuts off husband after baby's birth? And a battle of dynasties. Who gets the baby? They're painting you as the ice queen. Amelia, Jessica said over a secure video call, her face pinched with concern. The postpartum hormone card. The vindictive woman scorned archetype. It's playing well in certain circles. We need to get ahead of it. Silence is being interpreted as guilt, or at least cold calculation. Ben, listening in, steepled his fingers. We have the evidence of financial malfeasance, the secret account, the diverted funds. We can release a statement and get into he said. She said, financial mudslinging match in the press? Jessica countered. It's complex, it's dry, and frankly, it makes you both look bad. The public's sympathy lies with the relatable narrative. A new mother, abandoned at the hospital, that's relatable. A dispute over a Swiss bank account, that's rich people problems. It breeds resentment, not sympathy. I looked from Ben's legal pragmatism to Jessica's PR calculus. I was tired of being a piece on their chessboard. The hollow, furious calm that had settled over me demanded action. A clear, definitive statement. What if I give an interview? I said, my voice cutting through their debate. Both of them stared at me. Amelia, that's highly inadvisable. Ben began immediately. Anything you say can and will be used in the custody and divorce proceedings. Tristan's counsel will pick apart every word, every emotional inflection, not a tell-all. I said, the idea crystallizing as I spoke. A profile for the Wall Street Journal or Forbes, not about the divorce, about coming back, about being a new mother and a CEO. The questions will be about ether tech, about the future, about leadership, and when, inevitably, the question about my personal life comes up, I answer it once, clearly, on my terms, not as a victim, but as a CEO assessing a catastrophic failure and implementing a corrective action plan. Jessica's eyes lit up with a predatory gleam. Oh, I like that. We control the narrative, the setting, the publication. We frame it as a story of resilience, not victimhood. We make him the unprofessional one, the liability. Ben looked deeply skeptical. The risk is mine to take. I finished for him. He's already talking. Ben, he's painting a picture. I'm not going to sit in this $20 million bunker and let him define me. I define myself. After a long, tense discussion, Ben reluctantly agreed, on the condition that he and a defamation specialist from his firm vet every question in advance and be present in the room during the interview. Jessica got to work. Within hours, she had an offer, not from the Journal, but from Forbes. They wanted an exclusive, Amelia Sinclair on motherhood, metaverse, and managing the unthinkable. It was perfect. 2 days later, the Forbes journalist, a sharp-eyed woman named Anya Petrova, arrived at my apartment with a photographer. We'd staged the setting carefully, not in the cold, modern living room, but in the sun-drenched nursery. I was dressed not in power suits, but in expensive, soft cashmere, a new mother, but one of undeniable means and taste. Liam, mercifully asleep, was in my arms, a silent, powerful prop. The interview began as these things do, soft, focused on ether tech, on the future of immersive technology, on being a female founder in a male-dominated space. I spoke about our latest funding, our vision. I was calm, measured, the picture of a competent leader. Anya was good, drawing me out, making me seem relatable even while discussing billion-dollar market projections. Then, an hour in, She leaned forward slightly, her voice softening. Amelia, our readers, and frankly, the world, have seen the headlines. Your personal life has become very public, very suddenly. Would you be willing to speak to that? How do you balance this profound personal transition with the very public challenges you're facing? I took a deliberate breath, looking down at Liam's sleeping face, then back at Anya, my gaze steady. Ben, seated in a corner far from the camera's sight line, gave an almost imperceptible nod. Balance implies a steady state. I began, my voice clear and low. What I'm experiencing isn't balance. It's a fundamental recalibration. 3 days after giving birth to my son, my husband chose to drive my car to a 3-month anticipated dinner at Le Bernardin with his parents, leaving me to take a taxi home from the hospital with our newborn. I let the statement hang, stark and unadorned. That wasn't a lapse in judgment. Onion. It was a clarifying moment. It was a CEO being presented with an undeniable data point. A key partnership was not merely underperforming. It was operating in direct, hostile opposition to the core mission of the organization, which, in this case, is the safety and well-being of my child. Anya's eyes were wide. This was far more direct, far more raw than she'd likely expected. That's a very analytical way to frame a profound personal betrayal. It's the only way I know how to frame it now, I said, gently adjusting the blanket around Liam. When you discover that the person you trusted most has been systematically diverting resources, when you find evidence of parallel, clandestine operations, your duty is no longer to the failed partnership. Your duty is to the integrity of the enterprise and to the most vulnerable stakeholders. For me, that's Liam. My primary function right now isn't as a CEO or a wife. It's as Liam's mother, and a mother's first, last, and only imperative is to protect her child from all threats, even those that come from inside the home. The diverting resources you mentioned, there are reports of frozen accounts, of legal action. Is it true you're seeking to have your husband, Tristan Blackwood, declared, for lack of a better term, bankrupt? Anya's question was a quiet dagger. I met her gaze without flinching. I'm not seeking to declare anyone anything. Anya, I'm following the facts, and the facts have led to necessary legal and financial safeguards. This isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. When a person demonstrates, through action, that they prioritize a restaurant reservation over the welfare of their postpartum wife and infant son, it calls their judgment, their character, and their fiduciary responsibility into serious question. My subsequent actions have been to secure what is necessary for my son's future. How Mr. Blackwood chooses to manage his own affairs in light of his decisions is his responsibility. Some might call that cold. Anya pressed gently. What's cold? I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper that forced her to lean in. Is a text message wishing I was there, sent from a table for 3, while I sat in the back of a taxi, holding my 3-day-old son, with stitches holding my body together. I'm not being cold. I'm being clear-eyed, and I will sleep soundly knowing that clarity, not chaos, is guiding my son's future. The interview wound down soon after. I'd said my piece. The photographer took a few more shots of me with Liam, the image of serene, untouchable strength. The effect was instantaneous. The Forbes piece dropped online at 6 a.m. the next morning. By 7 a.m., my publicist's phone was ringing off the hook. By 8 a.m., it was the lead story on every business and gossip site. The narrative had flipped, decisively and brutally. My phrasing, a key partnership operating in direct, hostile opposition to the core mission, was quoted everywhere. I was hailed as a heroine of ruthless, maternal logic. Memes were made. Tristan was universally eviscerated as the Lou Bernardine Lothario, the deadbeat of Fifth Avenue. My phone, still on its restricted setting, lit up with a call from an unknown number. Instinct made me reject it. A minute later, a text came through from the same number, a number I recognized with a jolt as belonging to Tristan's mother. Helen, Amelia, this is Helen. I don't know what's going on, but this has to stop. How could you do this to our family in the press? We need to talk. For Liam's sake. A fresh wave of anger, white hot and pure, washed over me. Their family? For Liam's sake. I typed back a single sentence, my fingers stiff with fury. You should have raised a better son. Helen, do not contact me again. Then I blocked the number. The next call was from Ben. He sounded almost cheerful. The interview was a masterstroke. I've had 3 calls from Tristan's new lawyer already this morning. He has a lawyer? I asked, a sliver of fear piercing my resolve. A bottom feeder named Mark Slovic handles messy, high-profile divorces for men with more ego than money. He's all bluster. He's already demanding a sit-down, mediation, claiming you're engaging in a campaign of financial and reputational destruction. He's also threatening to go to the press with his side of the story. What did you tell him? I told him my client has nothing to mediate with a man who abandoned her postpartum and is under investigation for financial fraud. I told him all communication could be directed to the ongoing discovery process. And I told him that if his client so much as breathes in your direction, we'll be seeking a full restraining order and filing criminal harassment charges. Ben paused. He didn't like that. He said, and I quote, my client is prepared to fight dirty if that's how she wants it. A chill went down my spine. What does that mean? It means, Ben said, his voice losing its brief cheer, that Slovic is the kind of lawyer who specializes in dragging everything through the mud. He'll attack your character, your parenting, your mental state. He'll try to use the press against you. The Forbes piece was a brilliant preemptive strike. But the war isn't over. He's going to look for weak spots. And Amelia, he's going to find one. What weak spot? I demanded, my mind racing. The secret account was his. The affair was his. Ben's sigh was heavy over the line. You're a new mother. You've just been through a massive trauma. You're the daughter of one of the most powerful, and some would say ruthless, men in the country. Slovic will try to paint you as unstable, as a puppet of your father, as someone unfit for sole custody, using your wealth and privilege as a weapon to alienate a loving father. He'll argue that Tristan's mistake was just that, a single mistake, blown out of proportion by a vindictive wife and her overbearing father. The idea was so monstrous, so perfectly twisted, that it stole my breath. He left me at the hospital. I whispered, the words a broken record of truth in my head. And he'll say he arranged for a car service, that it was a misunderstanding, that you were hormonal and overreacted, and that you and your father have used that moment to launch a disproportionate, cruel attack to cut him out of his son's life and ruin him forever. Ben's voice was grim. It's a narrative, Amelia, a false one, but a compelling one to some. We have the facts, but in court and in the press, narratives can be as powerful as facts. The next move is his. And with a lawyer like Slovic, it's going to be ugly. Be ready. I ended the call and walked to the window. The city glittered below. Indifferent. I had fired the most powerful shot I had, and it had landed perfectly. But Ben was right. I'd just shown my strength. Now, Tristan, backed into a corner, broke and desperate, with a lawyer who fought in the gutter, was going to look for any way to strike back. The calm, controlled CEO I'd portrayed in the interview was about to be tested in ways I couldn't yet imagine. The facade of civility was about to shatter completely. The fallout from the Forbes article was a tsunami of public opinion, and it had washed Tristan's reputation out to sea, leaving nothing but wreckage. For 3 days, a strange, tense quiet settled over my life. The legal machinery ground on, but the public spectacle had momentarily exhausted itself. I was Amelia the unbreakable, the CEO mother who had turned betrayal into a masterclass in crisis management. My Instagram followers skyrocketed. Supportive emails flooded Ether's PR department. It felt like victory. The silence from Tristan's camp was the most unnerving part. Ben warned me it was the calm before the storm. Slovik is a brawler, he said, reviewing motions in my living room turned war room. He doesn't fight in the courtroom, he fights in the alley behind it. The quiet means he's digging. It means he's looking for a rock to throw. The first rock came not through legal channels, but in the dead of night. It was 2:17 a.m. Liam had just been fed and was drifting back to sleep. My phone, on the nightstand, lit up with an email notification. The sender was an anonymous, encrypted address. The subject line was empty. The body contained only a link to a private, password-protected file-sharing service, and a 4-digit code. A cold finger of dread traced my spine. I knew, with a certainty that made my stomach clench, that it was from Tristan. This was his style now, clandestine, threatening. I shouldn't open it. Every rational part of my brain, every instruction from Ben, screamed at me to ignore it, to forward it to the digital forensics team. But a darker, more visceral curiosity, mixed with a need to face whatever he was throwing at me, took over. I entered the code. A video file began to play. The footage was grainy, clearly shot on a phone, and shaky. It was a scene from a party. My 30th birthday party. Over a year ago, at a rooftop bar in Soho. The camera panned across laughing faces, then zoomed in on me. I was holding a champagne flute, my head thrown back in laughter. I looked radiant, happy. Then, the camera caught me stumbling, just slightly, against a tall, handsome man, Alex Roston, a venture capitalist who'd been an early investor in Ether. He caught my elbow, steadying me. We shared a smile. It lasted 2 seconds. In the context of the joyous, crowded party, it was nothing, but the video had been edited. It looped that 2-second moment 3 times in slow motion. Then it cut to another clip. From months later, Alex and I leaving the Ether offices together, deep in conversation, taken from a long lens. We were walking to a waiting car, a town car I used for work meetings. The video ended. Then, text appeared on the screen, white letters against a black background. A loving wife, a devoted mother, or a hypocrite who can't keep her hands off her investors? How long has it been going on? Amelia, was our son even mine? I have so much more. Let's talk. Or the world sees it all. T. The room swam. Nausea, hot and immediate, rose in my throat. It was a lie, a grotesque, malicious lie. He'd taken a handful of innocent, utterly explainable moments and spun them into a narrative of infidelity, of paternity fraud. It was the oldest, dirtiest play in the book, designed to inflict maximum damage and seed doubt. Was our son, even mine, the cruelty of it, aimed not just at me, but at Liam, at the core truth of his existence, stole the air from my lungs? I didn't forward the email. I called Ben at 2:30 in the morning. He answered on the first ring, his voice alert. Amelia, what's wrong? He sent me a video. I said, my voice a thin, strained wire. I described it. I read the text. Ben's response was a blistering curse. That's Slovik's signature. Sling enough mud. Some of it will stick. It's a preemptive strike. He's trying to rattle you, to get you to make a mistake, or to force a settlement where he gets something before he reveals this evidence. Do not respond. Do not acknowledge it. Send me the link and the code now. We'll have it analyzed. We'll get a subpoena for his digital records and prove he fabricated it. Ben, he's questioning Liam's paternity. I whispered, the horror of it finally breaking through my shock. And we will have him strung up for it. Ben snarled, a rare loss of composure. We'll demand a paternity test immediately. We'll shove the results down his throat in open court. But Amelia, listen to me. This is what desperate looks like. This is a man with no facts, no money, and no leverage trying to create some. He's going lower than I anticipated. You cannot engage. You must be a wall. I tried to be a wall, but the rocks kept coming. Over the next 48 hours, the anonymous emails continued. Blurred photos of me having lunch with my divorce lawyer, captioned, "Plotting your next move with your attack dog." Old. Out of context quotes from college friends given to tabloids about my wild streak and ruthless ambition. A package arrived at my father's office containing printouts of my emails with Alex Roston about funding rounds. Completely professional, but highlighted in yellow to look suspicious. The pressure was a constant. Squeezing vice. I jumped at every notification. I stopped sleeping, watching the baby monitor with a paranoid intensity, imagining Tristan scaling the building, bribing a staff member. The Amelia, the unbreakable persona I'd projected in the Forbes interview, felt like a brittle shell, cracking under the sustained, unseen assault. Ben arrived one afternoon, his face grimmer than usual. He wasn't alone. With him was a large, quiet man in a suit that did little to conceal his formidable build. "Amelia, this is Marcus Thorne, former Secret Service. He runs executive protection for Sinclair Holdings. He's going to do a security assessment." Marcus gave a curt nod. "Ma'am." Based on the escalation in tone and the implied threats in the communications from Mr. Blackwood, Mr. Sinclair and Mr. Carter have authorized an upgrade in your personal security. The building's security is excellent, but it's designed for privacy, not for a targeted threat. I recommend a dedicated agent stationed in the building, 24/7. I also recommend you and your son consider relocating to a more secure, less predictable location for the immediate future. Relocate? I echoed, a spike of rebellion cutting through the fear. You mean run? From my own home? No, absolutely not. I'm not letting him scare me out. It's not about being scared. Amelia, Ben interjected, his voice firm. It's about being smart. This penthouse is a known quantity. Your routines are being watched. He knows where you are every minute. Marcus is talking about breaking the pattern. Your father has offered the estate in Greenwich. The perimeter security, there is a different level entirely. It's private, it's vast, and it's not a location Tristan is familiar with. The estate? I nearly laughed, but it came out as a strangled sound. So I'm supposed to go hide in my father's castle? That's exactly the narrative Tristan's lawyer is trying to build. That I'm a puppet, that I'm not capable, that I need Daddy to hide me away. It makes me look weak. It makes me look unstable. It makes you look alive. Ben's voice rose, a sharp crack in the quiet room. Amelia, look at the emails. The man is unhinged. He's implying paternity fraud. He's stalking your movements. He's got nothing left to lose. Desperate people are dangerous people. This isn't a PR battle anymore. This is a physical security assessment. Your father is not suggesting this to control you. He's suggesting it because he's terrified for you and for his grandson. The raw fear in Ben's eyes, usually so carefully masked, hit me harder than any of Tristan's threats. I looked at Marcus, whose expression was neutral, but whose gaze was intent, assessing every window, every door. This was real. The game had changed. I need to think, I said, my defiance crumbling into a wave of crushing fatigue. Later that evening, after Marcus had completed his assessment and posted a discreet but unmistakable guard in the hallway, my phone rang. It was my mother, Eleanor. I almost didn't answer. I couldn't bear another lecture, another dose of practical, ruthless Sinclair logic. But I answered, "Hi, Mom. Amelia, darling." Her voice was calm, a smooth, cool balm after the day's chaos. "I've spoken with Ben, and with your father. I'm not calling to tell you what to do." That surprised me. "You're not?" "No. I'm calling to ask you a question. What is your primary objective right now? Not as Robert Sinclair's daughter, not as the CEO of Ether, as Liam's mother. What is the one non-negotiable thing? The answer came instantly, from a place deeper than pride, deeper than strategy. To keep him safe. Exactly, she said, and I could hear the approval in her voice. Now, is staying in that apartment, in the heart of Manhattan, where a desperate and vengeful man knows exactly how to find you, the best way to keep him safe? Or is it an act of pride that unnecessarily risks the one thing you value above all else? Her words, delivered not as an order, but as a Socratic challenge, sliced through my resistance. She wasn't questioning my strength. She was questioning my strategy. He'll say I'm running. He'll say I'm hiding. Let him, Eleanor said, her tone turning flinty. What does a trapped rat say when the cat moves to a better vantage point? It squeaks. Let him squeak. You will be in Greenwich, in a house with a gate, a wall, and security that would give the president pause. You will be able to sleep. You will be able to breathe. You will be able to think clearly. And from there, you can destroy him at your leisure, on your terms, knowing your child is utterly safe. That, my dear, is not weakness. That is the ultimate power move. It's choosing the battlefield. I was silent, absorbing it. She was right. My insistence on staying was about proving a point to Tristan, to the world, to myself. But proving a point was a luxury I couldn't afford. Liam's safety wasn't. Okay, I whispered, the fight going out of me. Okay, we'll come to Greenwich. Good, she said, her voice softening. I'll have everything prepared. You're not running. Amelia, you're regrouping. And remember, a Sinclair never cedes the field. We merely reposition for a more advantageous attack. The move was executed with military precision, under cover of darkness. With Marcus and a second agent, we left the penthouse. Liam and I were in one armored SUV. A decoy car left later. The Greenwich estate was a sprawling compound behind high stone walls. It felt like both a sanctuary and a gilded prison. For 2 days, I slept. The deep, dreamless sleep of the utterly exhausted. The constant, gnawing fear of a threat at the door receded. I began to think, to plan, not just react. Then, the final rock was hurled. It was a bright Tuesday morning. My new, secure phone rang. It was Jessica, my publicist. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the panic beneath. Amelia, sit down. I just got a call from Chad Wiley at the National Inquisitor. My blood ran cold. The Inquisitor was the bottom feeder of tabloids, famous for alien autopsies and celebrity sex tapes. He says he's been contacted by a reliable source. He strongly implied it was Tristan. Through Slovak, they're preparing a story, a massive, career-ending expose. He's offering us a right of reply, but it's a shakedown. He wants our side to make it juicier, or he'll run with what he has. What does he have? My mouth was dry. He says he has proof of your long-term affair with Alex Roston. He claims to have evidence of financial malfeasance at Ether Tech that you and your father covered up. And Jessica took a shaky breath. And he says he has a source who will testify that you have a history of mental instability, that you were hospitalized in college for a breakdown, that this entire thing is a vindictive campaign driven by a pathological need for control, and that you're an unfit mother. The world dropped out from under me. The first 2 allegations were lies, easily disproven with time, but the last one, it was a twisted, malignant seed of truth. I had been hospitalized, sophomore year at Yale, not for a breakdown, for severe pneumonia that turned into sepsis. I'd been in the ICU for a week. It was a physical illness, but the records could be muddied, the narrative twisted. Unfit mother, the 2 most devastating words in the English language. Weaponized. Jessica, I said, my voice miraculously steady. Tell Chad Wiley to print whatever he wants. We have no comment. Amelia, if they run with this, let them. I said, a cold, clear fury finally crystallizing inside me, burning away the last of the fear. Tristan had just shown me his final card. It was a lie, wrapped in a half-truth, designed to be the most damaging thing he could think of. He wasn't fighting for money or even for Liam anymore. He was fighting to erase me, to destroy me so completely that no one would ever believe a word I said. I ended the call and walked to the window of the estate's library, looking out over the manicured grounds, the high walls, the armed guards at the gate. He thought he was throwing rocks at a glass house. He didn't realize he was throwing them at a fortress, and I was done just standing behind the walls. I picked up the phone and called Ben. He's playing his hand. He's going to the Inquisitor with a story about an affair, corporate fraud, and my mental health. Ben was silent for a long moment. The bastard. He finally breathed. Okay, this is the gutter. This is where we expected him to go. We have the paternity test results. Conclusive. Of course. We have all of Alex Roston's sworn affidavits and travel records. We have your full medical records from Yale. We can bury him in facts. But once the story hits, even if we debunk it, the stain, I don't want to just debunk it. Ben, I said, my voice like ice. I want to annihilate it. And I know how. Get me everything you have on Mark Slovic. Not the professional stuff, the dirt. And get me everything your investigators have found on S. It's time we stopped playing defense. He wants to talk about secrets? Let's talk about his. I hung up, my heart pounding not with fear, but with a cold, focused anticipation. Tristan had stared into the abyss of his own ruin and decided to try and pull me in with him. Fine. He'd just made a fatal mistake. He'd shown me the depth of the hole he was in. And now, I was going to give him the final push. The National Inquisitor article hit the internet on a Thursday morning, and for a few hours, the digital world held its breath. The headline was exactly the gutter-level masterpiece I'd expected. Heiress Hell, inside Amelia Sinclair's secret affair. Corporate cover UPS, mental meltdown. The byline was Chad Wiley. Tristan, through his lawyer Slovic, had sold his story, and the Inquisitor had paid in the currency he now desperately needed. Attention. Ben, Jessica, and I were gathered in the secure study of the Greenwich estate, monitoring the real-time analytics on a large screen. My father, Robert, was on speakerphone from Switzerland. The piece is live, Jessica announced, her voice tense. They're leading with the affair with Alex Roston. They have the grainy video stills. They quote an anonymous close friend of Blackwood's saying the marriage was a sham for public consumption and that you were emotionally distant and obsessed with work. Then they pivot to the financial irregularities at Ether, vague allegations of shifted funds, hinted at with no concrete proof. And then the medical records, or rather, their twisted version of them. She took a deep breath. They claimed to have documents showing you were involuntarily committed to the psychiatric ward at Yale, New Haven Hospital for a severe psychotic episode following a romantic rejection. They have a source close to the family saying you've been on a cocktail of mood stabilizers for years and that your current behavior is a manic, vindictive spiral that puts your infant son at risk. They end by questioning your fitness for custody and the stability of Ether Tech's leadership. The room was silent except for the hum of the computers. I felt a strange detachment. Seeing the lies printed, given the weight of a news story, was less painful than I'd feared. It was so over the top, so maliciously crafted, that it almost felt fictional. The comments. My father's voice crackled over the speaker, flooding in. Jessica said, her eyes scanning another monitor. The usual Inquisitor crowd is eating it up. Knew she was crazy. Daddy's money can't buy sanity. But look at the shares and the other outlets. She pulled up a different dashboard. The social media shares were high, but the sentiment analysis was surprising. A huge portion of the tweets and posts were marked as skeptical or dismissive. They're not buying it, Jessica said, a note of disbelief in her voice. The Forbes interview is acting as a shield. People are linking to it in the replies with comments like, "This is the unstable woman? She seems pretty damn clear-eyed to me." The business press is universally slamming the Inquisitor. Bloomberg just tweeted, "Trash tabloid recycles debunked rumors about Ether Tech CEO amid bitter divorce." Story lacks basic sourcing, reads like legal threat letter. The narrative is it's backfiring. It's making him look desperate and unhinged. Not you. Ben allowed himself a thin smile. The Streisand effect. In reverse, he tried to amplify the mud, and it's splashing back on him. But we're not done. Jessica, release Package A. Now, Package A was our first volley, not a denial, a fact sheet, distributed simultaneously to every major financial, political, and mainstream news outlet. It contained the conclusive, court-certified paternity test results, establishing Tristan Blackwood as Liam's biological father with 99.99% certainty, sworn affidavits from Alex Roston and 3 other colleagues, with detailed timelines and travel records, categorically denying any romantic relationship and contextualizing every interaction. A official statement from Yale New Haven Hospital, with patient authorization, clarifying the nature of my hospitalization for septicemia, along with a letter from my attending physician, a concise summary of the financial findings. The $825,000 diverted from our joint account to Tristan's secret Swiss One bank account, with transaction records. It was dry, factual, and devastating. It didn't argue with the Inquisitor. It simply presented an immovable wall of truth and let the trashy tabloid story crash against it. Within an hour, the tide had turned decisively. Headlines now read, "Sinclair Camp releases bombshell docs, debunks tabloid smear and paternity test. Bank records contradict Blackwood's claims." Tristan wasn't just a liar now. He was a liar who had stolen almost $1 million from his wife. My phone rang. A blocked number. I knew who it was. I looked at Ben. He nodded, his expression grim. "Keep it short. Record it." I answered, putting it on speaker. "Hello." Tristan's voice was a raw, ragged thing, stripped of all its former charm. It was the voice of a man who had just seen his last desperate gamble come up empty. You unbelievable bitch." The words were slurred, thick with rage and what might have been tears. "You set this all up. You and your father. You planned this from the start. I planned for you to steal from me." "Tristan?" I asked, my voice calm. "I planned for you to have an affair? I planned for you to leave me at the hospital? It was just money." He screamed, "Our money. And Sasha, that was nothing. A distraction. You were never there. Amelia, you were always with the baby, or with your spreadsheets, or on a call with Daddy, hearing the name Sasha. So that was S. It meant nothing to me. You signed a prenuptial agreement." I said, each word a drop of ice. "You agreed it was my money. And as for your distraction, I hope she was worth it, because she's about to become very famous." "What?" The fury in his voice was suddenly tinged with fear. "You went to the tabloids. Tristan, you opened that door. You don't get to complain about who walks through it. Your secrets aren't secrets anymore." I paused. "The judge will see the paternity results tomorrow, and the bank records, and the evidence of your affair. You have nothing." "I have my son," he roared. "You had a son." I corrected him quietly. "And you chose Lou Bernardine. You chose Sasha. You chose to steal. Every decision from that night forward has been yours. Now live with the consequences." I heard a guttural sound of pure, impotent fury, and then the line went dead. Ben looked at me. "Package B?" he asked. "Release it." I said. Package B was the knife twist. It was provided exclusively to the Wall Street Journal. It contained the full, unredacted correspondence between Tristan and Sasha, full name, Sasha Petrova, a freelance interior designer he'd met at a Hamptons gallery opening. The emails and texts detailed not just the affair, but their plans, their mocking references to me, his promises that the Sinclair money would soon be theirs. It included his boasts about the Swiss account. It also included, courtesy of our investigator, Sasha's own financial records, showing lavish purchases funded by transfers from Tristan's now frozen accounts. The journal's story, published that evening, was titled The Double Life. Documents reveal plot behind Sinclair-Blackwood divorce. It was a clinical, forensic dismantling of Tristan Blackwood, the man. The final blow came the next morning in New York County Supreme Court. The hearing was for the preliminary injunctions and to set a timeline for the divorce. I attended remotely via a secure video link from Greenwich. Tristan was there in person, looking haggard and shrunken in a suit that suddenly seemed too big for him. His lawyer, Mark Slovic, was red-faced and blustering. Our judge, the Honorable Margaret Owens, was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with a reputation for having zero tolerance for games. She had read all the filings. She'd seen the Inquisitor article and the subsequent factual demolitions of it. Slovic tried to go on the offensive. Your Honor, my client is the victim of a coordinated campaign of financial and reputational assassination by the Sinclair family machine. The so-called secret account was for a joint business venture. The communications with Ms. Petrova are being taken out of context. This is about a powerful family trying to crush an ordinary man and separate him from his newborn son. Judge Owens peered over her glasses. Mr. Slovic, I have before me a paternity test confirming your client is the father. I see no attempt to separate him on that basis. I also have detailed financial records showing a systematic transfer of $825,000 from a marital asset account to a solely held offshore account, joint business venture or not. Failing to disclose this to his spouse is a serious breach. Furthermore, I have read the correspondence with Ms. Petrova. The context appears abundantly clear to me. It speaks to intent, to a disregard for the marital partnership that began well before the night in question. She turned her gaze to the camera. To me, Ms. Sinclair, you are seeking exclusive use of the marital residence, temporary sole legal and physical custody, and a continuation of the asset freeze. Yes, Your Honor, Ben, speaking for me, responded, given the evidence of financial concealment, the evidence of an ongoing extramarital relationship involving discussions of misappropriating marital assets, and most critically, the respondent's decision to leave the petitioner, who is in an acutely vulnerable postpartum state, without secure transport. I find a clear pattern of conduct that demonstrates poor judgment and a potential threat to the stability and welfare of the infant child. Tristan made a choked sound. Slovic stood. Your Honor, sit down. Mr. Slovic. Judge Owens's voice was like a door slamming. I am granting Ms. Sinclair's requests in full. Mr. Blackwood will have supervised visitation, to be arranged through a court-appointed professional, once per week for 2 hours. All financial restrictions will remain in place pending a full forensic accounting. The divorce will proceed on an expedited schedule. I am also, on my own motion, ordering Mr. Blackwood to undergo a complete psychological evaluation before any petition for expanded visitation will be considered. She fixed Tristan with a look that could have frozen fire. Mr. Blackwood, the court is profoundly unimpressed with your conduct. You have a mountain to climb if you wish this court to see you as anything other than a liability in your son's life. This hearing is adjourned. The screen went blank. In the quiet study, the only sound was the distant cry of a gull. It was over. The legal structure of my victory was now in place. Sole custody, the apartment, the money frozen, his name, his reputation, in tatters. My phone buzzed. Another blocked number. A text. The last. Desperate spasm of the dying snake. You think you've won. You haven't. I have nothing now. Nothing. which means I have nothing left to lose. Remember that. I showed it to Ben. He read it, his face hardening. That's a direct threat. We're adding it to the file for the permanent restraining order. And Marcus is doubling the detail here. He's right about one thing. Amelia, a man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous kind. The legal battle is won. The personal one may just be beginning. I looked out at the serene, protected grounds. The fortress was secure. The enemy was broken, bankrupt in every way that mattered. But as I read that text again, a cold certainty settled in my gut. Tristan Blackwood wasn't going to slink away into obscurity. He was going to try to burn what was left of his life down, and he'd want to take us with him. The victory felt complete, but the war, I knew, wasn't truly over. 3 months. The world moved on. The scandal of the Luke Bernardine Lothario was replaced by newer, fresher outrages. The legal machinery continued to grind, but the outcome was a foregone conclusion. The divorce was finalized in a quiet, procedural hearing. The terms were the ones Judge Owens had set in stone. I retained sole legal and physical custody of Liam. Tristan received supervised visitation every other Sunday at a family services center under the watchful eye of a court-appointed monitor. The financial settlement was a brutal reflection of the prenuptial agreement and his misconduct. He walked away with nothing that wasn't incontrovertibly his before the marriage, which was a leased BMW and about $20,000 in a personal checking account we hadn't found. The $825,000 was returned to the marital estate, minus his legal fees. He was ordered to pay nominal child support, an amount he could barely afford. Mark Slovic had dropped him as a client weeks ago, his bill unpaid. Tristan Blackwood was, for all intents and purposes, a ghost. I had moved back to the penthouse. The fortress of Greenwich had served its purpose, but it was my father's fortress. The city, with all its chaotic energy, was mine. The apartment felt different now, lighter. The ghost of the man who had paced by the window was gone, exorcised by new furniture, fresh paint in the den, and the pervasive, joyful clutter of a growing baby. Liam was my constant, my anchor, my reason. His first smile, a gummy, deliberate thing aimed at me, had felt like a cosmic pardon. My return to Ether Tech was not a comeback, it was a coronation. The board, once nervously eyeing the headlines, now saw a CEO whose personal brand of ruthless resilience had oddly boosted the company's profile. Our stock, after a brief dip during the Inquisitor nonsense, had soared. Sinclair Steel, the financial blogs called it. I leaned into it. I held my first all-hands meeting via video link. Liam on my hip. I'm back, I said, my voice clear through the company-wide stream. And I see the incredible work you've all done holding the line. You've proven Ether isn't about one person. It's about an idea. And that idea is more powerful than any headline. Now, let's get to work. We have a metaverse to build. The roar of applause from a dozen offices worldwide was a tangible thing. I wasn't just their leader. I was their avatar of survival. Yet, the victory felt compartmentalized. The legal win was complete. The professional standing was secure. But the personal landscape was scorched earth. And Tristan's final text, I have nothing left to lose, that was a silent alarm that never fully stopped pinging in the back of my mind. Marcus Thorne's security detail was a scaled-down but permanent feature. I'd traded the armed guards of Greenwich for a discreet ex-SEAL named Leo, who drove me and who had a terrifyingly calm ability to assess a crowded room in under 3 seconds. The first test of the new equilibrium came from an unexpected direction. I was in my new home office at the penthouse, reviewing designs for Ether's next immersive environment, when my assistant's line buzzed. Ms. Sinclair, your mother is on line 1. Eleanor Sinclair didn't make social calls. Mother, Amelia, your father and I are returning to New York next week. We'll be at the apartment on 5th. We'd like to see you and Liam. and we need to discuss the future. There was an edge to her voice, a purposeful calm that signaled a business meeting, not a family visit. Of course. Is everything all right? Everything is in its place, she said, which was her way of saying no. We'll see you Tuesday at 2. They arrived precisely on time. My father, Robert, looked older, the events of the past months having etched new lines around his eyes. But his gaze was as sharp as ever. He went straight to Liam, who was in a bouncy chair, and his stern face melted into a grandfather's goofy smile. There's my boy, strong, has his mother's eyes, and her stubborn chin. My mother, impeccable in a neutral-toned suit, kissed my cheek, her perfume a familiar cloud of money and restraint. We settled in the living room. Small talk was brief. My father got to the point. The legal matter is concluded satisfactorily. He began, his hands steepled. Ben Carter has done exceptional work. The financial retrieval was impressive. You've handled the public aspect with remarkable poise. The Forbes piece will be studied in business schools. Thank you, Daddy. But, he continued, the word hanging heavily, you are now a single mother, the sole heir to a significant enterprise, and the face of a public company. The vectors of risk have changed, not dissipated. Tristan is a broken man, but broken men can be unpredictable. Your visibility is higher than ever. The Sinclair name is both a shield and a target. I felt a flicker of the old rebellion. I'm aware. I have security. The building is secure. The custody order is ironclad. I'm not talking about physical security. Amelia, my father said, his voice dropping. I'm talking about legacy, continuity. You've proven you can withstand an attack. Now, you must build something that endures beyond any one person's capacity to withstand. That includes mine. I frowned. What are you saying? Eleanor leaned forward. Your father is considering stepping down as CEO of Sinclair Holdings within the next 18 months. The board succession plan has always pointed to you, but the timeline was flexible. Recent events have clarified things. For the empire to remain stable, the line of succession must be unambiguous and strong. Your position, personally and professionally, must be unassailable. The weight of what they were saying settled on me. It wasn't just about running Ether Tech, the company I'd built. It was about the vast, sprawling, multi-continental empire that was Sinclair Holdings. The real estate, the venture capital arm, the media holdings, the philanthropic foundations, the crown I had never been sure I wanted. You're saying my divorce, this whole nightmare, was a stress test, and I passed. So now I get the keys to the kingdom? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. No, my father said sharply. It was a tragedy, a betrayal that should never have happened. I failed you by not seeing that man for what he was. The admission, raw and quiet, stunned me. He never admitted failure, but in navigating it, you revealed a core of steel I knew was there, but had never seen so clearly forged. Running Ether is creative. Running Sinclair Holdings is custodial. It's about preservation, growth, and stewardship for the next generation. He looked at Liam, who was chewing on a rubber giraffe. For him, it's not a reward. Amelia, it's a duty, and I need to know if you're ready to accept it. The room was silent. The hum of the city was a distant whisper. I thought of the years I'd spent trying to step out of the Sinclair shadow, building Ether to prove I was more than just an heiress. And now, the shadow was offering to consume me, not to diminish me, but to be worn as a mantle. I need to think, I said finally. Ether is my life's work. It's me, and it can remain so. My mother said gently, you can run both. Others have. It will require a different kind of strength. Not the strength to fight a battle, but the strength to manage a perpetual campaign. We believe you have it, but the decision must be yours. After they left, the apartment felt larger, emptier. Their offer was a new kind of gilded cage, but of my own making. Power, instead of protection. It was terrifying and deeply undeniably seductive. The following day, I had lunch with Sophie at a quiet, members-only club. It was our first real social outing since the birth. She hugged me fiercely, then held me at arm's length. Look at you, CEO, supermom, and destroyer of worlds. How does it feel? We ordered, and I told her about my parents' visit, about the offer. Sophie listened, her expression turning serious. Whoa, the big chair. You know what that means, right? Endless board meetings, shareholder lawsuits, political fundraising dinners, and your face on the cover of Forbes every other month for a completely different, much more boring reason. I laughed. Thanks for the pep talk. I'm serious. Ames, Ether is your baby. In every way. It's wild. It's creative. It's the future. Sinclair Holdings is the empire. It's maintaining the past to fund the future. Which one sets your soul on fire at 3 a.m.? Both, I admitted, surprising myself, but in different ways. Ether is the idea. Sinclair is the foundation that could make that idea global, pervasive. It's a tool, a massive, complicated, often morally ambiguous tool, but a tool I could learn to wield. Sophie grinned. There she is. Not Amelia Sinclair, heir. Not Amelia Blackwood, victim. Amelia Sinclair, the woman who takes the biggest hammer she can find and builds what she wants. She grew sober. Just promise me one thing. However you do it for you and Liam, not for your dad's legacy, not to prove a point to the ghost of Tristan. For you. Her words echoed in my head for days. For you, Dot. I realized that was the heart of it. The entire journey, from the hospital taxi to this moment, had been about reclaiming my agency, my narrative, myself. Saying yes to Sinclair Holdings couldn't be an act of obligation. It had to be an act of choice. My choice. The decision crystallized a week later. I was in my Ether office, looking over the plans for the Liam Sinclair Foundation, the philanthropic arm I was establishing to support postpartum mental health and economic mobility for single mothers. The paperwork was on my desk. It was a tangible good, a positive legacy born from the pain. My intercom buzzed. Ms. Sinclair, a Detective Alvarez and a Detective Chin from the NYPD Financial Crimes Division are here. They say they have a warrant and need to speak with you regarding Tristan Blackwood. A Mr. Ben Carter is on his way up as well. A cold trickle of dread, a relic of the old fear, ran down my spine, but it was quickly followed by a surge of cold curiosity. What now? Send them in. Please. The detectives were polite but solemn. Ben arrived, breathless, just behind them. My client will not answer questions without me present, he stated immediately. That's fine. Counselor, Detective Alvarez, a woman with tired, intelligent eyes, said, this isn't about your client, Ms. Sinclair. Not directly. We're here as a courtesy, and because you're the alleged victim in a related matter. We've arrested Tristan Blackwood. I sat down slowly. On what charges? Wire fraud, identity theft, attempted extortion. Detective Chin said, after his financial situation deteriorated, he became involved with a rather sophisticated phishing scam operation. He used his residual knowledge of your personal information, your father's holdings, and even the details of your friends and colleagues to target them with fraudulent investment schemes. He also attempted to blackmail several former business associates with fabricated information. Mimicking the strategy he tried with you and the tabloids. He was caught in a sting operation set up by one of his intended targets, who was working with us. The irony was so profound it was almost poetic. The man who had tried to con me had graduated to conning strangers, and he'd been terrible at it. The ultimate, final failure. He's in custody now, Alvarez continued. Given the charges and his lack of resources, bail will be set prohibitively high, if it's granted at all. He's looking at significant prison time. We may need a statement from you regarding the prior attempts at extortion to establish pattern, but that can be scheduled through Mr. Carter. After they left, Ben let out a long breath. Well, that's that. The self-destruction is complete. He won't be a threat to anyone for a very long time. The supervised visitations will, of course, be suspended indefinitely. I walked to the window, looking out at the city. There was no triumph, only a vast, hollow finality. The monster wasn't slain in a dramatic battle. He tripped and fallen into a hole he'd dug himself. The last, faint echo of his threat was gone, silenced by the cold mechanics of the law he'd never believed would touch him. That evening, back at the penthouse, I fed Liam his bedtime bottle. He stared up at me with his wide, innocent eyes. Trust absolute, the last of the fear, the lingering tension that had lived in my shoulders for months, finally seeped away. The war was over, truly over. I picked up the phone and called my father. Daddy, Amelia, Ben told me, it's finished. It is. I paused, choosing my words with the same clarity I'd used in the Forbes interview about Sinclair Holdings. I'll do it, but on two conditions. I could hear the smile in his voice. Name them. First, we merge the succession with a new initiative. I want the Sinclair Foundation and my Liam Foundation to be at the core of the holding company's public identity. We're not just building wealth. We're building a legacy of tangible good. It's not a sidebar. It's the headline. A bold strategy. Risky. In some quarters. I like it. And the second condition? You don't step down in 18 months. You become chairman emeritus. I become CEO. But you stay on the board. As an advisor. My advisor. I'll run it. But I won't do it without your counsel. Not because I'm not capable, but because I respect what you built. And I won't pretend I can learn it all overnight. The silence on the other end was long and profound. When he spoke, his voice was thick with an emotion I rarely heard. Pride, you have a deal. Amelia, you'll have my counsel for as long as you want it, but it will be your company, your empire. After the call, I put Liam to bed. I then went to my desk and signed the founding documents for the Liam Sinclair Foundation. I wrote a personal check for the first $5 million. Not from a trust, not from a corporate account, from me. 6 months later, the first annual Future Foundations Gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It was a fusion of Silicon Valley, Wall Street, and old-world philanthropy. I stood at the podium, in a gown that was both elegant and severe. Liam, now a cheerful, babbling presence with his nanny in a nearby suite. The room glittered with wealth and power. My parents watched from the front table. My father's nod, a barely perceptible sign of approval. I looked out at the sea of faces, some supportive, some skeptical, all curious about the woman who had survived a scandal to command the room. I didn't need notes. Thank you for being here tonight. I began, my voice amplified and steady in the hushed hall. We're here to talk about the future, not the speculative future of virtual worlds, which my other company deals in, but the tangible future of real lives, specifically the lives of mothers and children who stand at a crossroads, often through no fault of their own. I spoke about the isolation, the economic terror, the silent struggles. I didn't mention my own story, but it hung in the air, a ghost everyone recognized. I announced the first round of grants to urban health clinics providing free postpartum support, to coding boot camps for single mothers, to housing assistance programs. The applause was thunderous. After the speech, as I worked the room, a well-known media titan approached me, champagne in hand. A remarkable pivot. Amelia, he said, his tone vaguely condescending. From tech to charity, a noble way to rehabilitate an image. I smiled. The cool, polished smile I had perfected. It's not a pivot, Charles. It's an expansion. Ether builds worlds. The foundation builds the people who will live in them. And Sinclair Holdings builds the infrastructure for both. It's a synergistic strategy. You should consider it. Philanthropy, when done with focus, isn't an expense. It's the ultimate investment in market stability and consumer growth. I turned his condescension into a business lesson, watched his smirk fade, and excused myself. Later, on the terrace overlooking the lit-up city, I found a moment alone. Sophie joined me, handing me a glass of sparkling water. You killed it in there. Seriously, you didn't just host a gala, you hosted a takeover. I smiled, leaning against the railing. The city that had witnessed my lowest humiliation now sparkled below, a kingdom of endless possibility. The fear was gone. The anger was a quiet, banked fire, useful for motivation, but no longer for warmth. The love I had for my son was a constant, radiant sun. I was no longer Amelia, the betrayed wife. I was not just Amelia, the comeback CEO. I was Amelia Sinclair, mother, founder, heir, and architect. The path ahead was daunting, complex, and mine to walk. I had not just survived the storm. I had learned to command the weather. And as I looked out at the endless lights of my city, I knew, with a bone-deep certainty, that the best was yet to come. The story of the victim was over. The story of the queen had just begun.